You've tuned into the Bellingham Podcast for the week of October 26, 2020. This is episode 169. From that second part, City by the Salish Sea, I am AJ Barce.
And again and yet again, I am Chris Powell. On this episode, we're continuing what we started last week. We were talking about email. We do it every day. It's the bane of our existence. But we're approaching 2021, and we're coming up with other ideas and mindsets and tips for you to be able to wrangle that inbox and make it tame. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Bellingham Podcast.
Well, my email cowboy, how we doing?
Giddying up. We like keeping things in bite-sized chunks as opposed to 100-minute marathon like some podcasts you might be encountering. So we decided to stick a fork in this episode last week, and we are continuing the conversation.
Previously on the Bellingham Podcast.
If TLDR, too long, didn't read. Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
Yeah, that's my short-term memory coming back. So to recap, in case you didn't listen to 168, we were talking about the types of email. Yeah, there's a lot out there. How you store your email. Is it all in the inbox? If it is, we'll pray for you. But if there's a whole lot of subfolders or other types of places to store them, where I think we touched upon keeping an organized list or some type of taxonomy of where to bring your emails, triage them, if you will, to use a term you used last episode, in a logical manner that's easy to access. We talked about notifications. Yep. And
when you check your email and how you check your email.
Yes, and the discipline involved in that could be a whole episode in itself.
Oh, yeah.
But where we were going with, how to be a better sender, we're all dealing with email and how to be able to avoid a whole lot of grumbliness from the sender or the recipient's standpoint. Mm-hmm. The BCC list is your friend, blind carbon copy, to be able to put people in that field. They'll still get your email, don't worry, but they won't know who else is being addressed in that email, and all replies will come to you.
Yep.
That's golden in this current era of mega threads.
And then on top of that, again, giving specify a time. So like, especially if you send, like we ended the last episode, if you're going to send an email at the end of the day, give the person a little bit of insight of when you're expecting a reply.
Please advise. No, that's not what we're looking for.
So what I really want to harp on with email is, this is an asynchronous tool, okay? Especially in 2020, I think we've now recognized that email is the proverbial sending an official memorandum, okay? As opposed to pre-COVID, it was really kind of used as like a synchronous chat tool for some people. The 140 character subject line respondents type of people, and there's nothing in the body. Please stop doing that. Now with 2020 and everybody being decentralized these days and going into 2021, messaging platforms are here to stay. Use email as an asynchronous tool, okay? If you're going to send an email, okay, if you specify a time, that is my biggest thing, or you will be burned at the stake in my book, okay?
Well, now, okay.
I'm serious. There is no need because again, you don't know when the person is going to be checking their email. You don't know if they're block timing it, like we mentioned in the previous episode, where you're dedicating a time at the beginning of the day. If you want a response and you need it ASAP, I use that intentionally.
Yep.
If you need it by tomorrow, if you need it by a tight turnaround, email is not the place to do that. Call the person, message the person. Do not use it in email.
And keep in mind, also have the perspective that when you're sending an email for someone who has a need, that you have a need for help, keep in mind they may already be helping out another client.
Or three.
We don't stroll into a doctor's waiting room, give a little nod through our mask or an eyebrow raise through our mask at the receptionist in the front office area and walk into the waiting rooms, open up all of the patient rooms to see if the doctor's around and say, "Hey doc, I got this problem." The doctor, if they don't throw you out on your ear or inject you with a tranquilizer shot, will probably say, "I'm with a patient right now. Please wait."
Sup, I'm here for my flu shots.
Fair enough. But anyway, it gives us a chance to be able to respond in a due amount of time that meets your needs and the level of urgency. And let's talk about that word urgent or ASAP. When you receive an email, do you like hearing urgent or ASAP? Guess what that triggers in my mind? This could be a phishing email. And yeah, I may know that you are a frequent email sender that comes into my inbox, but when I hear urgent or ASAP, there's cortisol that gets transferred in my body or released. There's a certain need for action right there. And I understand that you've got a situation you can't solve and your reputation and or your dignity is on the line. It's going to be okay. Yeah. Just take it from me. I've been doing this for almost a quarter century. It is going to be okay. This too shall pass.
Yeah. I usually use this analogy of, unless you're a neurosurgeon, because you're saving lives. Okay. That is urgent. You not being able to get your messaging client on your iPhone working because you updated something is not urgent.
Well,
it's not.
I know that there's a whole lot of communication issues, and we'll talk about that in a second. But we all need to be keeping in mind, just be patient.
Yes.
Just like in a doctor's office, be patient. Yep. Along these lines, I think if we, by the way, speaking of emails, a lot of us have gotten really creative with our signatures
and out of office.
Well, I actually have fun with my out of office replies. I try to be as genuine as possible and as cheeky as possible. Like, I'm not responding to email because I'm on a black ops clandestine mission for the government.
I'm usually bushwhacking out in the outback and trying to find the long lost city.
Okay, sounds good. But the thing is, that's an out of office reply. With a signature, the information that you are adding to every email that you're sending has the potential to be scraped. And when I mean scraped, I mean accessed by certain software programs in some businesses that will take your email, your home, your business work phone number, whatever information you're providing, and add that text to a database in which you will receive that spam or that unsolicited email coming into your inbox. Consider the environment before printing this email. How about you consider your signature and what information you're providing, not just the person you are emailing. Another idea to consider as we're having back and forth. We talked about the whole, bringing in the big guns from an email mega thread. When I have had more than 3 interactions with a client to try to get more information, or this isn't working, I call that email tennis. If I'm not able to resolve an issue within 3 responses, it's time for a synchronous, either video call, consult, or a phone call. Yep. I think that's very appropriate. Here's how we don't have to go back and forth to create this long thing that will but add a whole lot to our inbox. And so that's one of the things. After 3 rounds of email tennis, let's schedule a consult, because I think we'll be able to talk it out and have that kind of communication in which someone sharing their situation may be able to unlock something that will lead to a resolution. That's worked for me.
I concur.
Very cool. So, but here's the $1 million question.
Okay. I like $1 million.
Does your personal or work email need to be on your mobile phone when it already is on other tech devices? What work emails in this current state of being in society in 2020 as we approach 2021 are so urgent, yes, I'm invoking that word, to respond to that warranted you having an email app on your mobile device? And along those lines, with some email applications, you are giving telemetry. And for those of you not familiar with telemetry, that is data that is on your phone of various history, contacts, or other information about your phone to be transmitted to the app developer or the administrators of whom you are signing into. Is this app that you are installing on your phone worthy of that possible side effect of getting that email that you would need to be immediately notified about?
Notified. You and I both have had clients that, specifically Android, this is a problem, where you may be using a business side application like Outlook, But there is a management policy that also gets thrown over the top. And if you use said application, you have to abide by the management policy of the business. And you and I have, at least I'll speak for me, I've had clients that have basically said, I will not have business email on my personal device because of those policies, server side.
Well, and not throwing, it's up to every business to decide what level of threat risk they want to have. Because if your phone gets stolen and you don't have the proper security implemented already on your device, the bad people, and I'm not just talking about guys, I'm talking about the bad people will get access to information that could potentially harm your business or torpedo your business's bottom line. So that's something. Is it really worth having that on your phone, or can you get disciplined enough in 2021 to be able to let work be work on this device? And when you're out and about, to actually be out and about and not be tied, anchored, ball and chained to your work email. Something to think about. So let's talk about emojis.
Okay, so this I wanted to bring up because this is something that I've seen surprisingly, at least in our neck of the woods, emojis are being used a lot more.
Oh, sure.
And by people that I would not have expected it. And it's just been interesting because it made me think there's been studies with regards to should emojis be used in business? There's a link in the show notes.
And for the love of all you wonderful email people out there, drink.
So back in 2019, remember those days? Adobe.
Good old days.
Adobe did a study, and it basically revealed that 61% of emoji users admit that they use emojis at work. And it's just interesting to think about 61%, admit that they use emoji for in their business communiques.
The smiley face, the sideways smile is a thing.
But that's where this gets a little bit dark, is that, usually emoji is very casual. And I mean, I should say in the Western world here in the United States, it is, because in other cultures, emojis take on different connotations. The winky smiley face may not mean the same thing that you think it means in
another country.
In another country,
it might be an insult. Be careful.
Exactly. In a previous episode, I mentioned that the Danish, they use, because a lot of the times their communication can come off very point blank, very blunt, very stoic. They will actually inject an emoji or two, so that the message gets conveyed a little less sterilized, as I've read. So in it, I've recognized, and you and I've talked about this on the show since we've been in lockdown, nonverbal cues, like being able to communicate in this sterilized environment of just words on a screen. It's hard sometimes to understand what the meaning is. So I've noticed that people have used emoji. Usually it's the smile, or it's the frown, or the shock,
or the vomit face.
Yeah, I haven't had somebody use the vomit face on me.
Oh, I'll be sure to message you that after a while.
Because you may read something and you don't know if the person is annoyed, if they are mad, or if they were saying it sarcastically. Some people do not pull off sarcastic in text very well.
I understand that. And
so I've noticed that's probably why a lot more people in business have accepted using emojis more. My advice to you, if you're listening to this going like, I will never use emoji in email, or if you're like, oh my gosh, have I used too much emoji? Know your audience, okay? I mean, any marketing or PR person will tell you the same thing. Like when it comes to writing an email or using business messaging, know who you're writing to. Do you really want to do a winky face to your boss?
Especially someone who to be adverse with technology, or to be not a fan of having to use that blasted email or that blasted computer. Are you really going to have the Memoji for all you Apple iPhone users for the thumbs up? By the way, that okay emoji could be insulting to some people. Yeah.
So I threw in another link, social psychology and personal science. They actually did there's a quote, the dark side of smiley, the effects of the smiling emoticons on virtual first impressions.
Wow.
So it's a research regarding kind of the darker side of what I was talking about. Again, misconstruing things. Mm-hmm. Also, the overuse, the cascade of emojis. There are people that use so much emoji, Chris, that literally you'll see nothing but emojis in the communication. Rainbow unicorn, star, winky face, frowny face, upside down, pickle.
Yep. And I usually respond with something like to the effect of, I'm old, period. Please translate, period. Without emojis, period.
Yeah. So, I mean, just again, you can overdo it in emoji, and especially in a business setting, it can, I don't know, demote kind of your, credence to what you are trying to communicate in abundance.
You know what? You know who doesn't have an emoji?
Camry 102.3 FM.
That's right, but they are community powered without emojis even, and they're streaming all over the darn internet at kmre.org. A big fan of kmre.org is our, once again, in studio special guest, my wonderful growling barking dog, as we're recording this in my casa.
The casa.
Yes, so in case you hear any growling, that's not my tummy, even though I'm hungry, it's my dog. So anyway, thank you. Who's a good girl? Who's a good girl? That's right. You're a good girl.
You're now the new mascot.
You're right. All right. So I think we've beaten the emoji thing to death.
Yeah. I guess my two takeaways is know your audience, and if you do use emoji, try to use it in a way that would convey you either being trying to be friendly or bringing a level of honesty of what you're trying to convey to that person. Like
Ron Burgundy said, stay classy.
Stay classy.
And stay professional.
Yep.
So let's talk about some messaging. Now, we've got the emails, which could be the long form, but then there's also the SMS version of life.
Yeah. So, and this is something that at the beginning of this that I can't remember if I mentioned on the show or if I cut it out of the episode that I mentioned this in. Quiet hours.
Oh, yes.
I just like we said, like if you're going to be doing the work email 9 to 5, we have a physical desk, physical location. But like you said, messaging, and typically these apps are really prevalent on mobile device or tablet, however you do it. A lot of clients, app clients, have the ability to turn on and off quiet hours so that you will not get that boop at 9 o'clock in the evening.
Or 2 a.m. when someone is burning the midnight oil and has different peak hours for their mental capabilities when working.
Or they're just in a different time zone.
Yeah.
No, so like do look for that setting in whatever, I don't care if it's Slack, I don't care if it's Teams, whatever, set quiet hours or sign out of messaging when you are not on the clock.
And if you still have your phone as a alarm, and you keep it by your bedside, this is something that'll take one instance of an overnight or some evening kind of thing where you'll be like, where's that notification? It's usually in your settings app.
Yeah. Typically, so if I had to like TLDR our conversation of email and messaging, I take a very French approach. Okay. In France, they have a law that's basically the right to disconnect.
Oh.
And basically it says, you know, especially in these COVID times, I think this is even more applicable to those of us in the hardworking mentality if you're in the United States, is that kind of like when you clock in and clock out, when we invite software that is our communications systems of work on our personal devices, it stretches that 9 to 5. And in French law, they have the ability, once you are off, if an email comes in afterwards, there's no recourse of like, oh, you can be reprimanded because you didn't see that email. No, I was off the clock, you know.
Well, on behalf of all minimal technologists in America, I would like to tell the entire country of France, viva la right to disconnect.
So I would encourage, and I put a link to the kind of a brief article what that actual law is. I am very much TLDRing it, but that's kind of the approach that I typically take when it comes to this, especially because our home is our office and our office is a home right now. Like,
sure.
It's the only way that I can find a balance, to be honest, Chris.
Well, let's talk about some of the communication apps. You touched on Teams. If you're with a Microsoft shop, you've got Google Messages, whatever they're called this week.
Hangout.
You've got Slack, and you've got the typical Google Messages on your Android phone or your Apple Messages.
Oh, yeah.
iMessage. On your iPhone. And then there's also Picket. And so I want to give a shout out to all those privacy and security folks out there. You want to get away from having anyone have access to certain communication, whether it be a loved one or friends or even colleagues that you don't trust. Some people in the business who may have access to certain communications. Check out Signal. If you haven't heard of Signal by now, it's what the kids are using nowadays. Privacy and security conscious kids. And then also Wire. I got a couple links in the show notes. And for the love of all growling and barking dogs everywhere,
woof,
bark. So Signal and Wire are two platforms that have both desktop and mobile.
Apps are available. See store for details.
That's right. Here's where it's end-to-end encrypted, and I touched base on this in episode 168 with Proton Mail and Tutanota as zero knowledge email providers, meaning a rogue employee can't see what email you are receiving nor sending. Same goes with these messaging apps. If you really want to go quiet and secret, share that secret that the teacher won't see you passing notes in class, Signal and Wire are your definite hookups. So I want to give a public service announcement, or at least a pro tip to save your career. Consider what you're actually transmitting to someone, because we live in an era of the screenshot. And how easy is it? How many reputations have been destroyed? I hate to say this, how many marriages have ended? How many jobs have been lost because someone took a screenshot of what someone said or a little bit of snippet of a conversation and sent that off, or publicized it online, or sent it to a person of authority? Be careful about what you transmit to anyone. Even if it's a disappearing message feature, it still can be screenshotted.
Word. So,
all right, John Oliver. Cool.
I'm going to follow up on something, I guess, 2 episodes ago that you brought up, which is our Project Huga, because it is the fall, buddy.
Absolutely. Yes. And I talked about a question that my wife had asked me a while back. She goes, honey, baby, pumpkin, muffin of stud. That's what she calls me. I don't know why, but if
I am so sorry, Chris's wife.
Oh, I'm going to pay for that later. She asked me, if you could design your perfect Saturday, what would it entail? And I went off for a few minutes about that. But AJ, I caught you off guard. You didn't really have time to be able to contribute. This is your time. AJ Barce, how would you design a perfect Saturday?
Oh man, I'm going to be minimal on this one. So for me, and if you've been listening to the show, you've probably noticed that for the last 2 weeks there hasn't been an episode. So Chris and I have quietly been trying to stay afloat and prevent burnout. To be quite honest, I have been struggling trying to keep.
This is a real tough time.
Yeah, just trying to keep things afloat and try to keep things going. So for me, my Project Huga for a perfect Saturday is literally what I've done to try to help reset myself every week. And that is Saturday morning. I usually get up, and anybody who's listened to the show for the last 4 years knows that basically I get up in the morning, I make a cup of coffee, and I grab my journal, and it's usually my quiet time before said toddler, said wife, everybody wakes up, and the house is not so quiet.
And you get into dad mode.
I have to do dad mode. And that's the thing is that, especially in this era, like roles are like on 24 hours a day without the separation, and so for me, having that, whether it's 5 minutes some Saturday mornings, or 50 minutes, being able to get that so that I can there's just a little glimmer of like me time. No, I don't have a man cave or anything like that. It's just merely, I have more of a mental man cave, I guess, which is usually I journal or, do something that is not tech related. There is no screens in the morning for me. Nothing.
Hashtag analog life.
Oh, analog explore all the time, buddy.
Yep.
My current playlist is, I have to give a shout out back to Chill Hop. One of their artists in the collective of Chill Hop goes by the name Sleepy Fish. The album's called Everything Fades to Blue.
Oh, doesn't it now?
It is a great morning or even evening if you're winding down album. It's just that lo-fi, but it's got very much of a Salish beat to me.
Absolutely. And my dog approves of that mix too as well.
Absolutely.
She was like, yep, preach, bark.
The other thing that I try to do is I practice turning off. Okay. And I don't mean my devices, but mentally just turning off. Okay. Like the right to disconnect that I mentioned before is more of literally disconnecting from everything. More often than not, I'm usually, even though I'm clocked off, I'm constantly thinking of the things that, I need to spin something up for this to happen. And I really should follow up on that. And it's this constant churning in the back of my brain that's exhausting.
Yeah.
And so in that morning time frame, for me, it's my time to go quiet. It is tinfoil hat, no radio signals, Walden's Pond. Okay, we're going in Bellingham in my mind type of a thing. But also in that turning off, I also think about things that I can look forward to, because still traveling is not as fluid as I could do in the past. And so trying to find small projects that I can look forward to. So I've done a few things to my truck. Not any, like, it's not like I have like a lift kit or anything on my truck, but just small things.
Did you get the gun turrets?
No, but I did get some running boards on it.
All right. Sounds good.
Helps my preschooler get in my truck now.
There
It's great.
you go.
Just little things, not retail therapy, but something that I've been meaning to do, and a project that does not involve any pixels. It involves a wrench. Mm-hmm. It involves my son helping me drive some ratchet some stuff in. Little things like that, so that I'm truly, I'm focusing on the moment at hand and not thinking about work.
Very good.
The rules that we have to do. So that's my preventing burnout edition of Project Huga. Is my Saturday morning is practice turning off and chilling out, quite frankly.
If it can be after the kiddos go to sleep.
Yeah, however that time frame is for you.
On a weeknight, and if you can break away mentally from work, or, train yourself little small steps to be able to take, make successful steps toward getting that place where you can mentally compartmentalize.
Yeah.
This is my work mindset, and now it's going to be my quiet me mindset, and none the two shall meet.
Nope.
Very cool. All right, we got to wrap up soon. Let's talk about some quality assurance.
Yes, this is one of my favorite bits, because these picks are picked for you by AJ Barcet and Chris Powell for your quality assurance.
My podcast subscriptions have been very limited. I try a couple episodes of something that I think I might like, and eventually I will unsubscribe from the podcast. But there's one that I've really been enjoying, and it's been around for a while. But in these current times of a whole lot of frustration, angst, anger, unrealized expectations, unmet needs, how we approach these adversities in life matter. And there's an author named Ryan Holiday. He's got the Daily Stoic podcast. He really takes a deep dive, written a couple books about the Stoics, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, a couple others as well. It's a quick hit, about 2 to 3 minutes per episode to start your day. The Daily Stoic podcast is something that gives us a different mindset and perspective, that while we are dealing with a whole lot of injustice about the situation, about why we have to wear a mask and why we can't do what we normally want to do, or why we have to work from home, and why we can't have the freedoms, life, liberty, and the pursuit of all things Costco. I think getting a different perspective on how we respond and train ourselves to be better is worth the time. And I give a tip of the hat to the Daily Stoic podcast. AJ, what's on your quality assurance list?
Yeah, Ryan's show is pretty good. Mine goes to Art of Manliness, AOM. Just dropped a new episode at the time of this recording. The chef's secret to organizing your life. And I've mentioned this French phrase before, mise en place. Anybody who cooks, everything has its place, mise en place.
Mise en place. Now I get it. You mentioned this last episode, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. So chefs have been doing this for oodles and boodles of years, and nobody has ever really codified what it meant, and basically found kind of the rights, rules, and regulations cross-culturally what mise en place is, and how chefs, have this notion of process time versus immersive time. Things like what we're talking about with our inboxes, right?
Yes.
Chefs have this uncanny and innate ability, because of the business of food, to optimize time where businesses don't see it. So for instance, if you're a chef and you're getting ready for a dinner rush, if you don't preheat your oven before you start prepping your vegetables, if you just start, dicing vegetables for, I don't know, ratatouille or whatever, and you forgot to preheat that oven. Well, at the end of it, you're going to have all these vegetables prep and nowhere to cook them because now you have to waste time before a dinner service. And it's those notions that he kind of brings in this episode of where businesses need to beg, borrow, and steal from chefs in the kitchen because nothing else has tighter margins than, you have tighter margins as well as personal issues, because if you mix up ingredients, you can put somebody in the hospital, because of allergies.
Yep.
You have to...
Too much chili powder instead of paprika.
Yeah. You can run the risk of ruining a dish, wasting food. Like there is a lot of margin of error. And so he basically brought all of these secrets in and kind of flipped it on its head of how businesses can adapt it. For me, listening to it, I was like, Chris and I just do that. Cool. Tech mise en place. I'm gonna segue something that's not on here. Something that bothers me, Chris. Oh man.
Try me.
Okay. I hate to-do lists.
Really?
I hate to-do lists. And it was funny, after listening to this episode, I realized why I have always hated to-do lists. For me, a to-do list is always this thing where let's say you start your day, you bullet journal, you do whatever. You put your list of stuff, right? Well, inevitably, we put way too much stuff on a to-do list to start with, okay? And on top of that, we do not have reasonable expectations of what the task's time is worth. Kind of like the kitchen analogy. We see that chopping vegetables is going to take 30 minutes of prep, but we fail to put on that list like a reasonable expectation of the time it will take and the sequence of priority that must be taken for the objective to be done. So in listening to this, I realized, like, for instance, if you're and I see this even with some of our clients, like, oh, I have all this stuff I need to do. I have whatever is on your list. Well, what's the order of priority? Well, I need to do this because this is really, what can you hammer out? What order of precedence needs for it to happen? As technologists, we kind of deal with this because we have to deal with. I recognize there's routines and subroutines that we have to do. If script A doesn't get run, script B won't get launched.
Sure.
So it's an if-then statement. And I feel like a lot of people, if you're listening to me and you're like, oh, I do to-do lists and I'm feeling fairly accomplished, good for you. But here's the thing. How could you be more efficient? Because again, a chef could be a really good crepe chef, but the moment you want to do a savory crepe, it's a different way of cooking. So same thing with your to-do list. If you feel like you're productive, where can you find efficiencies in that to-do list? Because I can guarantee you, if you're just using it as a metric of like, oh, I got 5 things done in the day, as opposed to, well, how many hours did it take to get those 5 things? Mm-hmm. How much more things could you have gotten done in the same time?
I'm sensing episode 170 with this process time versus immersive time, to-do lists, this little episode from the Art of Man list, which we got a link to in the show notes. And for the love of cute puppies everywhere,
woof.
I think we might want to have an expanded discussion about this because we got to stick a fork in this episode.
Oh, that wraps it up for this twofer edition of the Bellingham Podcast. Thank you again so much for for listening to us, rating us, reviewing us wherever you like to get our podcast. Remember, if you're in the Bellingham area, you might be listening to us on good old KMRE 102.3 FM.
They're community powered, even if you have 2% battery life left on your phone at kmre.org. Let's wrap this up.
Oh, and on that note, 2 out of 3 dogs agree. I'm AJ Barsay.
And I'm the biggest dog in the kennel. I'm Chris Powell. Thanks once again for joining us on the Bellingham Podcast.
Hey, Chris, quick, hit save it.